All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome. I'm Michelle Kirsch, and this is the first webinar in the Into Alignment webinar series. And today's topic is creating your 2018 roadmap. So I'm starting with this topic for a couple of reasons. One being that, of course, it's January, and it's typically a time where people are doing some planning, setting goals and resolutions. So there typically tends to be a lot of inspiration this time of year. The second reason is that I consider this process that we're going to talk about today to be sort of the foundation for living in alignment, because we really have to step back and have a look at our whole lives and see what's working and what's not working to be able to choose effective goals and choose things that will actually help us create that life that feels really good for us. So, and of course that choose things that we'll actually be able to stick with. So that's the whole reason why I chose this particular topic today. And with all that being said, I'm going to jump right into the content. So I'm just going to pull up my slides here and share my screen. All right. And just put this down. Okay. So we should be good to go here. All right, so welcome again to your 2018 roadmap. And like I said, this is part of a series of 6 webinars that I'm calling the Into Alignment in 2018 series. So before we dive into the content, here's what we're going to cover today. So why it's important to do a yearly audit, and then how to take that in order to plan your year with more intention. I'm also going to do an alignment visualization live with you guys on the webinar today. So be sure to stick around for that. And it will be interactive. We're going to go through questions and stuff together. So feel free to grab a notebook and a pen if you want to follow along and do the exercises right along with me. And I'll have a few more ideas at the end around intentional planning and strategies and that kind of thing. So just a little bit about me really quickly, if you're new to my community. I'm a certified transformational coach, and I'm also a soul realignment practitioner. So that means that I do Akashic record readings to help people reconnect with their purpose. I help clients create a life that feels good from the inside out through aligning with their purpose. And my mission, as I mentioned here, is to help you find the clarity and confidence to live in alignment with your purpose so that you can experience more joy and fulfillment, because that's really what we all want, right? So that's what we're going to be looking at today, is starting to find that clarity about what needs to change in our lives so that we can experience more alignment. Okay, so let's start out with what is intentional planning, because this might be a new topic for you. Intentional planning is basically part of intentional living. And I wrote a little definition, or my definition anyways, of intentional living, which is about bringing more awareness and presence into your everyday life. So if that's intentional living, then intentional planning is just about bringing that same concept, that awareness and that presence, into your planning process. So I wrote it's about making choices consciously instead of running on autopilot, and committing to showing up authentically in your life as much as possible. And for me, intentional planning, what we're going to be doing today, creates a foundation for intentional living. So it helps to guide us to live more intentionally. And I personally bring in intuition into the mix too. So I use intuitive and intentional living together. And I'm going to be sharing a little bit about that when we go through the visualization. So it's really a hybrid of the two. So why not just set regular goals and resolutions like everybody else is this time of year, right? And I want, for example, everybody's thinking, oh, okay, I want to lose weight. I want to go to the gym. I want to make more money. I want to spend more time with my kids, all of those things. And those might be good resolutions or goals for you, or they might not be. So intentional planning is just going to help you go deeper into setting those goals by helping you look at why you want those particular goals and resolutions. And that just gives you that stronger why, and that makes you more likely to succeed. So basically, this will help you to find more alignment rather than just crossing things off your list and meeting those goals, because you want to feel good in the process. So this, of course, brings up another question that might be new to you, is what do I mean by finding alignment? So finding alignment is about looking at what feels good to you specifically. So not because you're trying to achieve something that you think you should or that you think someone else wants for you. And I mean, you'd be surprised how many of us set goals because we think we should want certain things, or we feel pressure to do certain things or accomplish certain things. So finding alignment is about exploring what works for you and what feels right for you. Not doing things because you think you should. It's creating a life that fits you and works for you and feels good. So when it comes to intentional planning, I take my clients through a specific process, and we're going to do some of that here today. We usually begin by exploring who they really are at their core, because knowing yourself really well helps you to create goals that fit you and helps you to create a life that fits you and feels good for you. And part of when we do that, when I do that with clients, is doing a soul clarity reading for them too. That just helps to give them that validation. So that's something that I do with my one-on-one clients. Then we look at how they are showing up in their life already. And this part is, what's working and what's not working. How are, your personality traits showing up in a positive way and maybe in a negative way? And how can we tweak things to make it work more for you? Then we look at, like I said, what's working and what's not working. And from there, then we can set intentions and create an action plan that'll bring in more alignment. So there's a lot more behind the scenes work that goes into creating this action plan than most people do. Most people just sit down and think, what are my goals? What do I want to accomplish? And then create their goals from there. And then they aren't successful with them. But if you step back instead and really think about, who am I? What do I really want? How can I use my gifts to my advantage? How can I, bring in more of the things that I really love into my life? Then you're more likely to have success with this and actually feel like you're living in more alignment in your life. Another question that you might have is, how often should I do this? So I personally do it yearly. I think it's a good idea to check in every year because, we grow, we evolve, things change, and what we want changes in the process. So for me, I find that New Year's is a good opportunity to do this, but obviously you can do it anytime. I like the New Year's energy, but some people love, September, for example, is like their New Year's. So find a time that works for you, that you enjoy sitting down and doing this review and planning process. If you're experiencing a lot of growth or change, you could even do it more often. So you might do it every 6 months just to check in and make sure that, everything feels the same and you still want the same things. So hopefully that all makes sense. What I want to start with today is, oops, I just realized, here, I'm just going to plug this in. Sorry about this. Hopefully you could hear me okay before. I just realized my earphones weren't plugged in properly. So what I wanted to start today with was a visualization exercise. And the reason I start with this is that this brings in that intuition piece a little bit. It'll help you connect to your intuition, what I like to call your inner wise self, so that you can do this planning and start to make decisions from a place that's truly aligned and authentic. So we will get started with this. If you need a minute to find somewhere to sit down, feel free to do that. Find somewhere that you can kind of just relax, that you can close your eyes and do the visualization with me. If you are somewhere that you can't do this live with me, I will be sending out a replay, so you can do this at a later time. You can come back and do it, and that's totally fine. I also wanted to mention before we start this that I do have this visualization that we're about to do as an MP3 that you can purchase if you want. So I'll send out a link after the webinar today that includes a PDF workbook of what we go through in this particular webinar, as well as this visualization in an MP3. So if you want to get that after so that you can do this on your own time, you can totally do that as well. So let's get started. Go ahead and just find somewhere comfortable to sit. And just, allow yourself to start to relax. Get settled in. Maybe take a deep breath, especially if you've had a bit of a hectic day so far. And just let that all go. If you haven't already, go ahead and close your eyes. Just breathing in and out softly. Becoming present and relaxed. And as you breathe in and out, just imagine that any tension, any stress is just releasing, floating away with your breath. And right now, you only need to be right here, completely present in this moment. And now I want you to begin to imagine yourself 1 year from now. So imagine that it's January 2019, and you're about to go through this same process as part of your yearly planning ritual. So imagine this future you, 1 year from now, sitting down with a cozy blanket, your journal, your favorite pen, maybe a cup of tea or a glass of wine, getting ready to reflect and review your 2018 so that you can get inspired for the new year. And as you picture this future you, I want you to imagine yourself stepping into her, stepping into this future self so that you can see your life through her eyes, from her perspective. You can see everything you've learned and experienced over the past year. And as you step into her perspective, her mind, her vision, you begin to reflect on everything that's happened in 2018. all of the growth and transformation that you experienced. And you can feel in your heart that 2018 was your best year yet. You feel so satisfied and content and at peace with yourself. And at the same time, you feel excited about the future. You feel inspired and energized by the possibilities ahead. And as you continue to reflect on this past year, you wonder whether there's a word that could really encompass and capture what 2018 has been for you. And just sit for a moment and see if this word comes to you. And if it does, great. And if not, that's perfectly okay too. Know that it will present itself in the next few days or the next few weeks when the time is right. Now, from this perspective of your future self, 1 year from now, let's take a look at your life and see what's changed over the past year. Let's take a stroll down memory lane from this future perspective and see what 2018 looked like for you. What did your best year yet look like? So let's begin with your personal health, your physical body. When you reflect on your best year yet, what do you notice? How do you feel in your body? What's different about the way you feel now? What did you do differently, or what did you change this year? What did you experience? And now let's move on to your relationships. Again, reflecting on this past year, a year that transformed your relationships in the best possible way. How do you feel about your relationships now? What's different? What did you change or do differently this year? What did you experience? And you're just observing your reflections, not worrying about how you did it or how you got there. Just like watching a movie of your life being played in your mind and observing what you see after this amazing year that you've had. Now begin to reflect on your career. How do you feel now about your career? Whether it's a job or a business, what's changed for you? How have you brought more purpose and alignment into your career this year? What was your experience like? And now reflecting on your finances. What's changed for you? Did you pay off debt? make a higher salary, save more money each month? How do you feel after your best financial year yet? And finally, take a minute to reflect on your personal growth. How have you changed over the past year? How have you taken care of yourself, your mind, body, and spirit? How have you expressed yourself creatively? How have you made time for hobbies and play? What have you learned about the world and about yourself? How did you show up in all areas of your life this year? And what were the highlights of 2018 for you? And now slowly begin to separate yourself from your future self. Imagine yourself stepping back and standing just in front of her. And just taking a look at that future you 1 year from now. And as you do, you find yourself locking eyes with this future you. And she smiles at you. And you ask her if she has any final words of wisdom for you. And just take a moment to listen now to whatever message your future self has for you. And whatever you've received, whether it's a word, an image, a feeling, that's just perfect for right now. And you can thank your future self for sharing this vision of what's possible for you. And know that you can come back to this and do this visualization yourself anytime that you want to. But for now, we're going to slowly make our way back to the present. So just start to pay attention to yourself sitting in your chair again, feeling yourself in your body, beginning to move around, maybe stretching your arms and your legs, wiggling your toes, and slowly opening your eyes. And just looking around the room to make sure that you're fully present. So I hope that you enjoyed that visualization. If you're new to visualization and you didn't get a lot of imagery or a lot of messages, that's totally okay. It's something that takes practice, and you can come back to this, watch the replay, and do it again. Or like I said, you can purchase it for yourself as well after the webinar. And you'll get a little bit more information each time you do it. So feel free to play around with that. Even if you didn't get a lot of information from the visualization, you can still continue on doing the exercises that we're about to do together. But I just like to start with that to help us connect in with our intuition, with our wise self, so that we can be tuned in as we do this work. And I think that's a really great way to get present and get centered before doing any kind of planning. So now that we've done that, we can start to connect or create our vision. So you might have had some information come through. Maybe it was general information. It might have been some specifics about the different life areas that we talked about. So feel free to grab your notebook now or some paper and a pen, and you can just start jotting stuff down as we go through it. And again, don't worry if you don't have time to put everything, on paper that you want to. You can always come back to this. And like I said, you can always listen to the replay later so that you can press pause and take as much time as you need to. So the first thing that I want you to write down is what stands out in terms of how you visualized your best year yet. So as you started doing that visualization and you started thinking about your best year in all those different life areas and even just whatever came up in general, what comes to mind right away? What came up for you? What did you see? So just take a minute to start writing down what was different, what stood out for you. And feel free to keep writing as I continue on. I'm going to share some additional questions that you can start to think about and start to answer, just jotting whatever comes to mind. And these are what I call my pillar questions. So I always start with these 5 questions. And they just help me to start to zero in on what's most important for me. You can go back to your vision and pull from that to answer these questions and just anything else that starts to come to mind. And you can use these then as we move on to do the additional work, to come back and look at it and contrast this to what you have, what you want and what you have right now. So the first question is, what do you want more of? So thinking about your vision and just in general, what do you want more of in your life in this upcoming year, 2018? And then on the flip side of that, what do you want less of? What are you ready to let go of? How do you want to feel this year? So pay attention to how you felt during the visualization. How do you want to feel as you go about your daily life? Maybe how do you want to feel in some of those different life areas? And what do you want to experience? This can be really specific things that you want to do, or it might be more general. Just write down whatever comes to mind. What do you want to experience? And finally, what matters to you? What feels most important to you right now as you look towards the rest of the year? Okay. Now, in terms of creating your roadmap, we're going to be using those pieces that we talked about, that vision that you wrote down, and then the answers to those questions that you had, that you just did. Now, in the PDF workbook bundle that I mentioned, I actually give space to look at all your specific life areas, just like what we did in the visualization. It gives you an opportunity to look at each life area and what's working and what's not working, and what's the vision for that specific life area. And I didn't want to do that all on this webinar today because that would take quite a lot of time. But if you want to go back and do that, then like I said, I'll send you a link after the webinar today to purchase that, and you can go through all of the different life areas and see what comes up for you. So for what we're going to do today, in order to create your roadmap, we're going to go through your answers so far, what you've jotted down in terms of your vision and the answer to those intentional planning questions, and start to highlight or circle what feels most important. So this is just beginning to pick out priorities. And you might have other thoughts, come to mind as you're doing this. You can continue to write things down, but just kind of go back and start to circle the things that feel most important or most urgent. And I want to mention that it doesn't mean that you can't come back to those other things that you wrote later, or that they aren't important. We're just looking at the ones that are the most important and most urgent right now. And you're going to keep all of those so that you can come back to that later, even 3 months from now, whatever, and see if there's new priorities for you. But right now, we're just letting this process, let your intuition guide you to what your priorities are right now. What things feel most important? And as you're beginning to circle those priorities, you can start to think about what actions or habits you need to implement to bring you closer to that vision. So especially if what you wrote down wasn't a specific action. So for example, you might have written down that you want to be more intentional in your life. What kind of actions would that take? What does that mean to you? What does that mean on a daily basis? Does it mean, taking time to meditate every day? Does it mean pausing more before you speak? Does it mean, what are the specific things that you need to do to achieve that, that priority that you wrote down? Because if we don't have something specific, it's a lot harder to actually accomplish that. Some of the things that you write down might be habits that you want to change. Some of them might just be actions that you want to take, a decision you have to make. So what things need to happen for those ideas to take place, or for you to come closer to that vision that you have? And just write down everything you can think of. Break it down into as small little actions and tasks as you can possibly do. You want the smallest steps possible, and just write it all down for now. Not worrying about how you're going to do it, or when you're going to do it, or how you're going to accomplish it. Just writing down everything that comes to mind in terms of what actions, habits, decisions, etc., that you would need to take to bring you closer to your vision. Now, if you're having trouble prioritizing, maybe several things feel important, or maybe you're just not sure what feels most important, it can help to choose 2 life areas. So if you notice that, the same life areas are coming up again and again in the things that you've written down, whether it's, your health, whether it's relationships, whether it's finances or your career or your personal growth, what life area is coming up again and again? And choose 1 or 2 based on how often it's come up. And then from that life area, you can choose a couple of priorities. And it doesn't mean, again, that you can't come back to those other life areas, but it'll just help you to focus in on what's most important right now. Now, the way that I deal with the actions, so to take all of this planning and this thinking and reviewing of our life and to actually turn that into an action plan, or your roadmap, as I like to call it, you have to separate out the actions into what I like to call ongoing actions and then once and done actions. So this is really important in helping you to actually get stuff done. A lot of times when we choose goals and resolutions in January, we're doing a lot of habits. So we're doing things like, I want to drink more water. I want to eat, more greens. I want to go to sleep earlier, wake up earlier. I want to be more patient in my relationships. And we're choosing these things that are ongoing, and we choose way too many of them. So it's really hard to change a lot of habits at once. So that's why I like to separate them, because it is okay to pick, 5, 6 once and done actions. Those are things that you put on a list, you do them, and they're crossed off and they're done, and you're done it, and you don't have to think about it anymore. So those ones, we can pick, a good handful of them and not feel overwhelmed. But if we choose a whole handful of ongoing actions, we're going to feel overwhelmed, and then we're going to feel like we're failing. So by separating them out, we can be a lot more intentional about what we choose to implement right now. So I put here to choose 1 ongoing action. You can choose 2, even 3 if they're not super complicated, or if you feel like you can handle more than 1. Obviously, that's totally up to you. And then, 2 or 3 once and done actions. And again, depending on how much time they take, how complicated they are, again, using your own discretion there so that you don't get overwhelmed. And this is just going to make it easier to keep track of your actions so that you can actually have some success in implementing them. And that's a big mistake that people make, like I said, with choosing goals and resolutions, is they pick way too many ongoing actions and they get overwhelmed. So I just put an example here of how to separate these out. So you could do this on a separate piece of paper. Just write down anything that came up for you that's ongoing, and then anything that's just 1 item that you have to cross off your list once and then it's finished. And then I like to separate the ongoing tasks even further into daily, weekly, and monthly. And I mean, obviously you might have other combinations there, like bi-weekly or whatever, but kind of separating them out like that so that you know what things you need to think about on a daily basis, what things you need to think about on a weekly basis, what things you need to think about on a monthly basis. So just for an example, things on a daily basis would be those things like drinking more water or being more present. And again, you're going to want to define what that means to you. It might be taking a vitamin every day, or it might be waking up earlier. Those kind of things are daily things. So you would lump that in your daily category. Weekly things might be meal planning on Sundays, or making sure that you go grocery shopping once a week. It might be, meeting up with a friend for accountability once a week. So anything that you're doing regularly, but not every day. And then the monthly things are just things that you want to check in with on a less frequent basis. So this might be, you know, if you're part of a committee that meets once a month, it might be that you plan get-togethers with your girlfriends once a month. Whatever it is, it's not as frequent, but you want to make sure that you're writing that down in its own category too, so that you can keep track. And then the once and done items, like I said, those are things that you just need to do once, and you can actually list them out and then enter them directly into your calendar. And you can choose a time frame. I usually think about this whole process every 3 months. So I don't do the whole planning process. That I only do once a year, like I said. But I'll come back to my list of actions, that initial one that you wrote down, where you're just writing all your different actions down that you want. Then I'll pick, like I said, 1 or 2 of the ongoing, a handful of once and dones, put them in my calendar. When I'm done those, then I can come back to my list again, and I don't have to start all over trying to figure out, you know, what my goals are and what I want. So this list really becomes the base of your roadmap, and you can come back and refer to it. And that way too, it really satisfies your mind, because a lot of times we have so many things that we want to get done, and we feel like we have to get them all done, you know, within those first few weeks of January. And that's just not realistic. But it helps your mind to know that you have these things written down, you're taking care of it, but you just don't need to do it right this minute. You're not going to forget about it. You're not going to forget about these important changes or these important tasks that you want to get done, but you're only going to focus on those few for the next 2-3 months. Then you can come back to it. That list will still be waiting for you. You can pick some new ones. So now that you have that list of what you feel is most important, I wanted to share a few strategies for success. And, you know, how do you deal with this roadmap? So I talked about it a little bit already. Like I mentioned, choosing, you know, 1 to 2 ongoing actions at a time, using your discretion, of course, around, you know, what seems doable for you. Maybe up to 4 or 5 once and done actions, again, depending on how much time they take. And I also wanted to point out that if an action has several steps, break it down and write down each step separately, so that you can put each individual step into your calendar separately. And like I said, you can revisit this every 3 months or so and pick new priorities to work on. And when that whole list of actions is done, then you can revisit your vision and all of your answers and pull out new actions and priorities. So a few of these strategies for success. For daily actions, it's really important that you have some sort of reminder to help you get into that habit. Habits are not easy to make and break, so you need some sort of daily reminder. So a couple examples of how you can do this: you can post it where you'll see it regularly. If you live, you know, by yourself, then you can post that wherever you want. If you live somewhere where you don't necessarily want people to see this, then you can find somewhere to put it, whether it's in your phone. For me personally, I put them on my desktop background. So I created kind of like a little digital vision board and listed a couple of my daily actions and daily habits that I'm working on. And that way, every time I log on to my laptop, I see them. So find what works for you, but find some way to have that daily reminder, even if it's a reminder on your phone coming up or something like that. For weekly actions and monthly actions, I like to put them into my calendar or into my planner. And usually there's, you know, a section on the side of your calendar that says notes or something like that. So you can write those reminders in there. Or if it's something that happens on a specific day, like meal planning and that kind of thing, you can just put that right into your calendar. That way you're reminded to do it. Once and done actions, again, right into your calendar, right into your schedule, whatever scheduling system you use, whether it's you know, on your phone, or whether it's a, you know, paper planner or a calendar posted somewhere, whatever it is that you use, make time and put these on your calendar. And when you're doing this process and you're spreading it out over 3 months, you don't have to feel like you have to do it all in the next couple weeks. So break them down into the smallest possible steps and then put those steps on your calendar. So if one of your once and done actions is maybe that you want to move or you want to sell your home or something like that, then break it down. And it might involve some research. It might involve calling your realtor to come appraise your home. It might involve going to see other homes, whatever it might be. Break it down to all those little things and then put those specifically into your calendar so that you're treating them like an appointment, like any other important thing in your life. Schedule time weekly and monthly to review your action list. So just to make sure that you're on track, make sure that everything still feels good, make sure that you have enough or not too many actions. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, cut a couple of them out for now, put them back on your action list and just focus on 2 or 3 at a time. And anytime that you need motivation or inspiration, you can do that visualization exercise that we did together. That helps you just to reconnect with that future you and reconnect with the vision that you have of what's possible. And that'll just help you to feel inspired and feel motivated again and ensure that everything still feels right for you. And then the final point that I put here is to find support and accountability. So this might be a best friend that you want to meet with regularly who's also trying to make some changes. It could be a support group. It could be a coach or a therapist. It could be a mastermind. Whatever it looks like for you, ask yourself what kind of support you need to accomplish these specific tasks and actions that you wrote down. And so, in talking about that, before I go, I do want to extend an invitation to you if you want to go deeper with this, if you enjoyed the content, because I know we didn't have a ton of time to go through everything today. If you feel like you're stuck in a specific area, you'd like some help getting clarity, then I do have a couple options for you. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this because if you feel the pull to work with me, then you already know that. And you can just feel free to reach out. I can send you more information and help you decide what the best option is for you. But right now I have some 90-minute one-on-one planning intensives. So that would just be sitting down with me. We can talk about, what you've covered so far and any areas that you're feeling stuck, any areas that you need clarity on. We can work on those together and really, help create that roadmap for you going forward for this year. So that's one option. That particular option I only offer now and then. It's not on my website. So definitely reach out and email me if you'd like to sit down for a 90-minute session. And I put my email on there, Michelle@michellekirsch.com. And then the second option, of course, if you like more support over a longer time, I have a 3-month coaching program as well. So feel free to have a look at that one on my website. And if you feel like you need some additional support, definitely reach out and I'm happy to help you decide what the best kind of support would be for you. So that is it for today. So I hope that you have found this helpful. I hope that you were able to experience that future you and experience that vision of what your life could look like, explore those possibilities, and then take that from that more intuitive place and bring it into a really practical plan, intentionally choosing actions, intentionally choosing how you want your life to look, what changes you're going to make, what that's going to look like on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So I hope that you found that helpful. And I also hope to see you on next month's webinar. So definitely stay tuned, check your email for that. I'll have one every month for the next 6 months. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions at all. I would love to hear about how the whole process went for you. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you next time.